Very effective because there are very few people in the world who learn Yerushalmi. We do it in any language. So we are, yes, absolutely. We're on Daf Kav Ches. See, Dr. Spell, we have to wait for you. I'm Rabbi Yudan. Rabbi Yudan said, Tabachav Ches Aleph. Third line down, 55. I believe that's what up to. I'm Rabbi Yudan Shurbi Akiva. 55 alive. I'm Rabbi Yudan Shurbi Akiva. If the animal eats, if the animal eats complete fruit, complete and total fruit, Yerushalmi Peiros Gmurim, and you pay complete and total fruit. Netios, if it ate saplings, Shamilon Netios, then you pay for saplings. Netios, if you ate saplings, Shamilon Beisa, you reckon the value of the saplings in proportion to the field which they're in. Now, that's a contradiction. You measure each sapling independently, you measure each sapling in proportion to the field in which you find it. So the Pnei Moshe explains, he's probably right, that it depends how significant they are. If they are just generic saplings, so then you just measure their significance or their value as they blend into the general surroundings. If, however, they are very significant saplings, then each one be measured independently. But I'm not sure if that's correct or not, but obviously the Gemara is trying to express some dichotomy, that sometimes measure saplings based on their proportional value to the rest of the field, sometimes based on their independent and separate value. Be that as it may, says the Gemara, Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda Omer Mishra Akiva, Tvur shelo yavia shlish, a grain which is not yet grown to a third of its growth, Nidones kinetios. It is evaluated like the saplings. Now, again, the Pnei Moshe is a little ambiguous. I would say not exactly like the Pnei Moshe. That means that when it's less than a third of its growth, so then we judge it as it blends into the background. Once it's more than a third of its growth, then we know it's suitable for human consumption, so then we don't judge it as blending into the background, but rather we give it its own independent value and assess it as food as opposed to as part of a general field. Now, here's a very important point, which is also in Bavli. The Beit Rabbi Yanamri, what is the proportion? Shomin tirka b'shishim tirkovim. It's even a small amount you blend in to 60 times. In other words, if the animal, let's say, knocks down 3 trees, so you measure among a patch of 180 trees. Okay? No, you don't remember this. No, we didn't have this, unless you remember this from 6 years ago in Bavli, but we didn't have this recently. So Rabbi Yosef. Even a single stalk you don't measure independently, but you measure as part of a patch of 60 stalks. So you always measure according to based on the proportional value as part of a larger group. Again, the mirror in the car theory, right? The same idea.
Why 60?
Obviously, 60 is a measure. Yeah, obviously it's connected both to Bashishim. In other words, that's the minimum degree, a minimum proportion, the smallest possible proportion, but it still retains its identity. So that's how you're trying to determine. Yes, you're thinking that's what you were thinking about the Bashishim, something which is canceled in 60.
Rabbi Shkop is studying Bava Kamma.
Oh, so you did it with him.
We had this one a while back.
But that makes sense. Okay, very good. Very good. I thought only Makas with it. That was the best. Okay. Chad Barnach Ganav Chada Kifune. Now, a certain individual stole a basket full of dates. The thing is, it's obvious from the case that he stole this basket off the tree. Okay? Now, an As Uvdei. Now, initially, it's not clear if they were ripe or not ripe, and that's critical. Asuv the Kumi Rav Shmuel's case came from Shul Armalez said, "Zil Shaimale Bereish Tikla." Go reckon its value as it would be at the top of the tree. In other words, normally if you steal dates, you pay for dates, right? But here the dates were stolen off the tree, so therefore, when he reckoned how much the Gazlan has to pay, he reckoned it as dates on the tree as part of the tree. which means obviously less, because obviously the expenses of harvesting and such like are diminished, are deducted from the value of the gneva. So it says more. Not only that, they were full-grown, fully mature dates, and the proof of that is that they were in the top of the tree, because I think the ones at the top of the tree mature fast. It's just a hunch. My chavrusa mentioned this morning, probably they're in the sun, they mature faster. But be that as it may, that's irrelevant. The bottom line is that even if they're fully mature dates, and about to be harvested, you still, as somebody steals them off the tree, you judge their value proportionate to the rest of the tree as opposed to independently as fruit. Okay? This is shtickle chiddush. It says Mishnah further. Hamagdish talks so then we had this back in the 5th parak. Hamagdish talks chaber. If you put your piles of grain into your friend's field, shlobashus without his permission, if the owner of the field's animal ate them potter, then the owner of the field is potter. If on the other hand they cause damage to the owner of the animal's field's animal, and then Baal Gadish Chayev, the owner of the piles, is liable. If the Gadish was put in with the permission of the owner of the field, then Chayev, then he assumes liability. So it's a Gedishim Besada Kelim Shabai. So we had this again, as I said back in the parak, that Gedishim in the field are like Kelim in the house, which means that you don't need to have specific permission. Once the Baal Asad is given permission for them to be put in his field, he doesn't have to say additionally, and I'm a Kabul Shmir on them. But that's implicit in his allowing the Gedishim to be put there. We have back then a Machlokas, Rebbe and Rabban, if you have, by stuff which is put in your Chatzar, if you have to additionally be Makabel explicitly Shmira, or the fact that he let you put him in there is sufficient. Well, here everybody agrees the fact that Gedishim vis-a-vis a field are like Kalim in a house, and you don't need explicit Kabbalah of Shmira. It's implicit in the permission to put them in. On Rabbi Yisrael Bun adds, and this is not in the Bavli, Tipoter, you can only explain this by Hidisle Mazger if there's a lock. If there's a lock and key. If it's a closed field with lock and key, because then I say the assumption is if he gave you permission to put your piles of grain in, that he intends for you to rely on his security by having them put there. Okay. Says the Gemara, says the Mishnah, Halach Dal, Hasholech Sabir, if you send a fire, B'yav Cheir Shreit V'kot, in other words, you give them something which can be construed as fire, construed as fire. So, Pati B'dinei Adam, since they're Cheir Shreit V'kotan, you are exempt from human law. Nobody can make you pay in court for having been negligent. But in the hands of heaven, you are liable, and if you don't pay, you're going to burn in hell. Okay? So heaven makes souls liable, even though human beings do not. Says the Gemara. We'll get that. In any event, if you gave it to a person who is adult and intelligent and sane, then you lose all liability. Even the adult, intelligent, sane person is the one who's liable. One person brings the fire, the other person brings the wood. So I may even say to Mchai, the guy brings the wood as chayiv, not because wood is better than fire, but rather because he's the last guy to be involved. One guy brings the wood, and the other guy brings the fire, and words ur and h seem to be interchangeable. The guy brings the fire is liable because he came last. But if a third party came, even for beyond them, v'liba, and fanned the flames, then the person who fans the flames is liable. If they're fanned by the wind, everybody's exempt because it's an act of God, and we're going to say when that's exactly true.
So again, it's the last person, just like the two people that left the door.
Right, it's the last person. Okay, now Machlokas is also in the Bavli. Chizkiah says b'shemosel gachelas. When you gave the cotton a coal, then you're exempt. Of maslo shalheves, but if you gave the cotton a flame, chayev, you're liable. Now, the way they explain Chizkiah's opinion says Chizkiah holds isham mishumamona. Your fire chayev because it's your property. It's like your ox. So therefore, if you gave a cotton a shalheves, right, you didn't safeguard it properly. You gave him flame. You didn't safeguard it properly. So you're liable on your ox, also liable on the fire which you gave this cotton. Okay? If you gave a gacheles, so the Bible uses as far that a gacheles is going to go out. Because the coals don't last very long. So if the cotton then reignites it on its own, so then it's not your liability, at least not b'dinei Adam, perhaps b'dinei Shamayim, it is in the hands of heaven, but not in human court. The thing is, the Yerushalmi, the Yerushalmi makes a little bit of a tzimis about this. It doesn't bring down b'shemoselo gacheles v'liba. It sounds like even if you just gave the coal itself, and the coal itself, without the cotton igniting it further, cause the fire to spread. So you're still pater b'dinei Adam and chai b'dinei Shemaim. But I'm not sure if there's such a diuk or not. I don't know if there's a specific issue to be made. In fact, that it doesn't say gacheles v'liba. I don't know.
Well, you can put it's a smoldering coal. You can put it on something that's flammable, and that.
Right. The question is whether there's a mafkimina, a distinction between the Bava and Yerushalmi in that respect. That's what I don't know. Anyway, so it says Moran Rabbi Yochanan, he gacheles yishlev. So it says no matter what you give him, a coal or a flame, you're still pater, because Rabbi Yochanan knows isha mishum chitzov. You're chayav on fire because like your arrow, so you have to shoot the arrow. If you gave an arrow to a cotton and he shot it, you're pater. You might be a Russia, but you're pater. So here, if you gave your fire to a cotton, even an open flame, and he started the fire, you might be a Russia, but you're pater. It's a cotton because you didn't shoot the arrow, right? Says the Gemara, the Kashya, al daiti the Chizkiya. We got a problem. This question not brought about. According to Chizkiya. Ilu mishra gachalto. Now, I spent a long time trying to figure this out today, and all the Farshim go nuts, and some of them give really wacky interpretations here. So I'm just going to go Shai Torah Yisrael, which makes everything work out more or less dandy. So he says, Ilu mishra gachalto. If you see your own coal, take out your chavero. That's what Shai Torah Yisrael does. If your own coal, megalgelos v'lechos, rolling down the street, very koloso, and you don't extinguish it. A coal went from your fire, it's rolling down the street, and you don't extinguish it. And of course, what's going to happen if you don't extinguish it? So ignite more fires. Shema, and take out the word Eino, because Shai Torah Yisrael takes out. Shema potter, you exempt? But it's here too, if you gave your coal to the cotton, yeah, it's rolling down it's rolling down the street. You should be chayav, even according to Chizkiya. It's a kasha and Chizkiya. Why is the coal different? Now here could be the Aryasha's deal comes in. The Bavli answers that question. Because the Bavli says that the gacheles the gacheles is constantly going out. So it's not like rolling down the street because it's becoming colder and colder. Because it's a coal. But the Yerushalmi doesn't give that answer. The Yerushalmi gives an amazing answer, which is different, very substantially different than the Bavli. They said tipoter b'shamaslo gacheles hefker. We're talking about a case where you gave a gacheles which is hefker. It's not your gacheles. If you hold isha mishum mamono, it's got to be yours. So if it's not yours, you're pater. So that's how the answer of Chizkiya is gacheles shel hefker. Not brought down the Bavli. The Bavli doesn't bring down so kash and teretz. So obviously the Bavli might hold even gacheles shel hefker might be considered mamono. But the Yerushalmi does not. So I was bothered by that. Technically, how does this work? Picking up from the from Hefker not being zoich in it, but it is possible. Yeah, and so my Chabrus asked me, so why is it not a bor? If you give it to a cotton, it's like a bor misgalgel. It's like a rolling bor. So it's a cute question, but it's not really a question, because that would be true about a shalheves. If you gave a cotton a shalheves, that's a rolling bor. But if you gave a cotton a gacheles is not necessarily a bor. A gacheles is not in and of itself dangerous. It's the cotton's application of it that it's dangerous, because it's not an open flame. That's what you have to say. So it's not making a bor. It's mishum mamono. It's not mamono if it's shel hefker. So it says Yerushalmi inami. Now I say Yerushalmi, but I'm skeptical about this, as Lieberman brings down from some maskila sha'achron. I don't even want to call him an achron. There's somebody called the Riha Levi. I don't know who he is. It says the language inami is never found in the Yerushalmi. Doesn't see it. It says he boys Tamar or Iboy Seimar, it never says Inami, which in probably is a language used for another alternate answer. So therefore, so it's a question what this whole next line means. But if it is to be read here, and it's part of Yerushalmi, Inami here means is actually an attack, not an alternate answer. It's an attack. It says, you want to say Gachel shall have care. If that's Chizkiya's Svara, shall have his hefker. The what's in Tzachina Gachel is hefker, shall have his hefker. If you part an hefker, you should be part an hefker across the board. Yet Chizkiya distinguishes between Gachel son and Shalevis. So therefore, leis shmami no klum. You can't derive from this anything. In other words, the question remains on Chizkiya. Why, if it's Gacheles, why do you get Gacheles? Why you potter? It should be considered your fire. Hi, you're going to say that's Gachel shall have care. Then Chizkiya's the other part of Chizkiya's statement makes no sense. Why distinguish between Gacheles and Shalevis? If they're both hefker, they should both be potter. So therefore, the Yerushalmi concludes with a question. Yerushalmi doesn't know what exactly Chizkiya's svara is. The more goes on anyway. What? Is that true? It's not in the Bible, you know? I bet you it is. Yeah, Iboy Sema is more the norm. Inami is more Tosfos. That's true. At least as far as I recall, offhand, you're probably correct. But I bet you if we looked on the CD Rav in Gemara and looked for Inami, we could probably see. But you're right. Could be that we don't find it Bavli or Yerushalmi. In which case, I had in mind to say Allah the Mashbiach, who says this very frequently, that was a later insertion in the Gemara. And indeed, this some sofer later put it in because Inami is not at all language of Yerushalmi, so maybe some put it in later. Could be. Okay, it says Istani Tani Liba. Those who say that fanning flame is called Liba, Istani Veniba. Some say it's called Veniba. Madamar Veliba, he says Liba the Labas Eish. The flame of fire is called Labas Eish. Madamar Veniba. Now the Baal brings the pasuk Borei Nivs Vasayim, the breath of the lips, which makes sense because you fan with breath or with wind. But Yerushalmi is a very strange pasuk for using a nun for Niba. But it says Vayabali bi ke'esh bo'eres. It's going to be in my heart like a burning fire. Beautiful pasuk. Where's the nun in that pasuk? And you want to say that it should be Niba with a nun. Versus dog can nun nisht, right? It doesn't say any nun in this pasuk. So I was just staring at this for a long time today. So I finally figured out it must be. It's a negative proof. Trying to say you can't it's not a proof for using Liba. It's a proof not to use Liba. Because you see a fire in the heart is called, so you have fire in the heart. So Liba would connote a compact fire, which is contained within the heart. So therefore, if you want to connote an expanding fire, you have to look for some other word. It must be the word Niba, based on a portion which doesn't appear here, Borei Nivs. That's not such a great interpretation. I freely admit that, but I don't got a better one.
The internal combustion, the external.
Right, internal and external. Right. But Libsa Ruach, Harei Klum Turb, in the Mishnah, if the wind fan the flames, everybody's part. To Tamari, they said, when is that true? Beruach shel onosim he must in a wind like a hurricane. Literally, onus, of course, is an accidental or act of God wind. A ruach shel misnai bochai, but if it's a wind which is a custom in the world, then you're liable. Now that is in the Shaitar, the Kikala Oden says this at the bottom. He says that's not what the Bavli calls the ruach mitzuya. No. It's a ruach she'ena mitzuya, but it's not a ruach shel nasim. There are three levels here. There's ruach shel nasim, there's ruach she'ena mitzuya, but it is knowing occasionally in the world, and there's ruach mitzuya. And that's clear from the next line. So it means that if it's an extraordinary hurricane for gale-force wind, then you're not liable. But if it's a medium-sized wind, even more than a normal wind, then you are liable. They said, I feel ruach she'ena misnai bo pater. That's what they say, that even this above more than usual wind, you are potter. Why potter? This is more than usual wind. Shepami ba pami lo ba, because sometimes it comes and sometimes it doesn't. So rather, what's a wind which you'd always be chayiv in? A prevailing wind, right? Ruach Matsuya. So the three levels: a prevailing wind, a wind which occasionally happens but it's not prevailing, and a wind which never happens. And that's the three-way machlokas. Okay, all wind here in Chicago is abnormal wind. All right, it says the Mishnah further. Hashleach zabera, if somebody sends out a fire, v'achleitza upon him and it consumes wood or stones, or dirt, chayiv, you're liable. Shemar says, Kiteitza eshu motza koitzim. If fire goes out and finds thorns, and we're going to see the rest of it later on in the Gemara, the rest of the pasuk, etc., Mortis as well. Other garden, after fire passed over a fence, shugava arba amos, a firewall, or derech rayim passed through over a highway, or nor over a river, part you are exempt. Because you can only be chayiv if you're fire, because that's an aberrant fire. You're not liable that much for that fire. Okay? It says Mara, now let's start in the pasuk. Ma koitzim yuchadim. What's the pasuk mentions? Thorns. What are thorns? Shadagim yucham shadagim lidagim. Sharater so points out that means in this context that people use thorns as kindling, right? So I just said thorns. I would have thought you're liable on thorns because thorns are used as kindling, right? Maybe only liable if your fire burns stuff like kindling, stuff which is that dry and flammable. What about there's a tamlumar godish, that's why it mentions piles of grain. Piles of grain, they're somewhat moist, not used as kindling. So ima godish, so if it includes godish, maybe at least that's be miyuchas, be unique in that is shatolish min hakarka. It's like severed from the ground. Afi only davar shatolish min hakarka. So maybe only you're liable for concerning eish. It's like which is severed from the ground. Tam lomar kama. That's why it says kama, which means even standing grain on the ground. Uma elu velum yuchadim. Maybe these are nikshadarkan lidalek because they burn. Darkan lidalek above meant kindling. Darken lake over here means that they burn, they're combustible, right? Maybe only things that are combustible you're liable on for fire. Licha niro, if the fire singes your plowed ground. Sivsavad, if it singes your stones. Midayim. How do we know that the guy who set the fire is liable as well? Because the pasuk continues to go on and say, "Oh, hasadeh." Even a field, the field doesn't burn, so it must be liable for damage caused even to non-combustible materials such as stones and such like. Okay, says Rav Yomer koitzim kama sadeh. If that's the case, you want to tell me all these things. Mention kotzim, the thorns, the kama, the standing good stuff, and the field. Why mention the pile? What do we learn from the pile, which I would have known elsewhere? Not known elsewhere. So, Daiti Rabbi Yehuda Nicha. According to Rabbi Yehuda, it's good. You know why it says Gadish? We're going to see later on down on the Amud. Rabbi Yehuda is Yechayev. Gadish is to tell us Yechayev on Tomud. So, Meshai Kol Mashatoichum. Now, this is the last great term of the first half of the Masechta. Last important term from the first half. By the way, tonight we finish the first half of the Masechta and go to the second half. It's customary in yeshivas either to learn the first half or second half of the Masechta in any given year, not both, because they're two different topics. The first half of the Masechta is about damages, torts. The second half of the Masechta is about theft. Okay? So tonight we start thieving. So in any event, the bottom line is that the important concept, the first part of the Masechta is Talmud. Rabbanan hold, if you have a fire which goes out in a field, and it burns the field, and there was stuff in the grain, in the stalks of grain. Let's say you were hiding in the stalks of grain, you're hiding their jewelry, or you were hiding their documents, or whatever you're hiding there, something, furniture. Doesn't matter. The guy whose fire went out is potter. That's called tamun. It's Xeris Akosov. Well, actually, it's not necessarily Xeris Akosov. We'll talk about in a few minutes that you're potter. Rabbi Yehuda holds your chayiv. How's Rabbi Yehuda learn out from the extra word Kaddish? Why say pile of grain? It's obviously chayiv a pile of grain. It must be even things inside the pile of grain. If you had needles in there or a haystack, and the needles got burnt, so then you're liable on the needles as well. Okay, so that's uses Kaddish. But al daited Rabbanan Damrei Eno Shalom El Kaddish Chitim. You only pay the value of the pile as wheat. Or it should be instead of soda, it should be Gedish Sorim, or the value of the pile of barley, lays the Dover Namar. Why does it say it should be Soda, as it says here? So why does it say Soda, lays the Dover Namar, Gedish? Why does it say both? Let's say either Soda or Gedish, but why both? Excellent question. So good that in the spirit of Yerushalmi, which we haven't had for a while, Yerushalmi does not answer it. Okay? Why they both? If the fire passed over a fence which is 4 amos high, or derech harabim, or over a highway, or nor, which is obviously 6 amos wide, or nor passed over a river, pot you're exempt. Amar, it should be Rav, of course, not Rabba. Amar Rav, because the kodachas even kodachas is literally means something which is empty. Let's talk about a small fire, a small and short fire. Katefes, but a large and high fire. So then it says here divrei kol, but that makes no sense. Try to change it. Afilu kama, no matter how far it goes, you're chayev, you're liable, because once fires become tidal wave walls of flame, so they can jump over anything. What? Right. Rabbi Yochanan Katefes was this. Rabbi Yochanan is more makel. It says our mission is even talking about a high wall of fire, and you're still part in all these things. But you should know that if it's a small flame, then, and here Shaitan puts in the word afilu koshu, no matter how far it travels, you're potter, because small flames are not made to travel. So actually, Rabbi Yochanan is saying again, according to Shaitan, it changes. If it's a large flame, it no matter where it goes. If it's a small flame, even if it doesn't go anywhere. So the small flames, medium flames, big flames, depending on the flame ups or the flare ups, that's how much you're going to be liable, how far it goes from its original base. Okay? Now what about if you lit in your own backyard? You made a barbecue. How far does the fire go? It's considered to that point liable. So it says the Gemara, it says in Mishnah rather, it says, we look at his fire as if it's the middle of a base core, as though he has enough buffer zone on all sides to make up what would be the shiur base core, so in that case the guy's not liable. I forget what exactly that shiur is. Whatever the shiur is, be that as it may, that's then he's okay, he's off the hook. Rabbi Lezomer, that's our Lezomer. Lezomer changes the and needs 16 amas clearance on all sides of his flame. If he has 6 amas clearance and it spreads anyway, he's exempt. That corresponds to the shiur of a highway mentioned in the previous Mishnah, which would be the flames are not supposed to be able to carry over. Rabbi Akiva Omer 50 amas, need 50 amas on all sides. Rabbi Shimon Omer, Shimon says, you can make hard and fast principles in this. Shalem Mishalem Hamavir Saber, you pay based on the arsonist who lit the fire. I'll call for you, Madlik. Everybody think goes by the skills of the arsonist and the parameters of the conditions. So you can't give hard and fast rules. Says Etani. We have a story. Maisa Shavat Leka Sayarde. There was once a time when a fire went over the Jordan River. It's like Shaisa Kasha was a very strong, powerful fire. So I guess theoretically, if in that case, you'd be liable if you set to a strong fire. But otherwise, generally speaking, being honest in that case. A comet harvard lake, how far this is will the fire pass? So you have to be careful. Let's make 16 amos. Like the width of a highway. B'shasa ruach. Now, if there's a wind blowing, however, then it's almost double that. Shloshim bama. We're concerned of the 30 amos that the ruach might make it go and jump and continue in any direction. Remember, Shloshim says normally it's 30 amos. B'shasa ruach, if there's a wind, and you have to be content with 50 amos away. Kimomer 50 amos. If there is no wind, it can go 50 amos. B'shasa ruach, time when there's wind, you have to contend with 100 amos away. Maisa Ba'arav, there was a case in Arabia, who I guess is very hot, or the fire jumped, more than 300 amos. Okay? Amasai, however, all these parameters and the safe zones are only as much where there's clearing between the fire and 50 amas away, or 30 some way, depending on who you hold like. But if there was plenty of wood in the path of the fire, or that the fire was jumping around and gathering strength, I feel on mil chayim. Even if it goes up to a mil away from Yerushalayim, it's still considered part. I said Yerushalayim. Even a mil away from wherever it began, the mil away from wherever it began, it's still liable because obviously he had a lot of intensity and power to it. However, either we said occasionally you could jump over a river or a puddle. If they're 8 amos wide, pots are exempt because that's an aberrant fire. Plus, for a chutzpah, jumping over such large, massive water bodies, you're not liable in that case. Okay? Halacha Zayin. Back to Tom. Hamalik is a Kodesh if you ignited a pile of grain, but you came and there were objects in it. You know, shine, you pay everything within. Chachamim say, Eino Mashalim El Gdisha Chitim. You only pay the value of the Gdish in its full volume, including whatever cavities holding other objects. But you pay based on the prorated volume of yeast. You pay based on the former prorated value of the pile of grain, of wheat, or the value of a pile of barley. If you have a goat tied next to the fire, or an evan just standing next to the fire, when he's something and they burn together with fire, Chayv reliable on the goat, and you're reliable on the evan. Evan kafuslo, wherever the slave is bound up, and the goat stands nearby, it doesn't walk away in its own initiative, and they both get burnt together with whatever's burning. So in that case, Chayev, you're liable. There's no killer rabbaneh on the Evan because the Evan could have walked away, so the fact that he committed suicide doesn't make killer rabbaneh, and therefore you're liable on the goat. Since you're liable on the goat, that's what it says here, Chayev. However, what if the opposite? Evan kafuslo. You had tied the slave before you set the fire. So ever can the slave get away? No, you're killing him. Since you're killing him, so therefore you're a murderer. Since you're a murderer, what do we say? Kila bin rabbaneh, right? So in that case, in that case, Modi Chachon Rabbi Yehuda, Chachon consider Rabbi Yehuda, b'malik es habiha, that if somebody ignites the a large house. So Misham Masha, so you pay based also on what's in the house. Even though technically it's Tamun, right? Because it's inside the house. No, because the whole svar of Tamun according to Chachamim is because the person set the fire no way of knowing that it was there, right? But if you know it's there, that's something else. So that's why if you know something is there, so you can make a claim afterwards.
Had the person known that there was something in the bushel when you set fire to it, would have done it?
What?
The commerce assuming that he wouldn't have, if he knew something was valuable in it, he wouldn't set fire to it.
Right.
But the guy was a pyromaniac, he's going to set fire to it regardless of whether there's something in it.
Well, we don't know about this concept of pyromaniac. You're just assuming that there's I don't know if the Gemara was assuming that. Well, it's just assuming that he's going to what?
Be more careful, or he knows he's more.
Yeah, he is going to take. Yeah, he's not psychotic. Well, he's really neurotic. Okay. So it says Gemara further. Rav Shariel said, "Monachol Rabbi the Bekli Goyer should act like me." Now it's along these lines. Even Chachamim agree, Rabbi, where it's something which is normally hidden in the pile or in the grain, such as harvesting tools, and in that case, the person who sent the fire is chayav because that's not going to be a true talmud, right?
It's like the B-road.
What?
It's like the B-road. It's like the house. Because
Right, because it's normally put there. It's like the stuff in the house. That's right. However, contradicts Rabbi Yehuda and eventually Rabbanan as well. Tam Roimer by Peah. He says, parallel to, we don't have to leave Peah from stuff which is hidden. You know, like potatoes which grow in the ground, they're hidden from view. You don't leave Peah from potatoes. Okay? Yet here, Vachomer, L'Rabos Tamun. Here you include Tamun in the stuff which, according to Rabbi Yehuda, there's payment for and damages. So why there does he preclude and why here include? Why here does he exclude? So it says the Gemara, V'leis Rabbi Yehuda and Darish Hacha, the right. V'leis Rabbi Yehuda and Darish Hacha El Gadish. It's taking me a moment to remember what he's going to say. But basically he's going to say that there's a difference between the Rabbi Yehuda's drush over there, Rabbi Yehuda's drush over here, which is that by our large Rabbi Yehuda here is because it says the extra word Gadish, it includes everything which is in the Gadish, right? Let's say the Gadish. Gadish loves the dover. I'm fumbling this one. Let's read this. Let's say the Darish Hacha Ella. He doesn't actually else write it like this. Gadish lays a dover Nemar. Why say Gadish? What possible reason for it to say? We already asked the question on top of the page. So it says more, and we already answered the question on the top of the page. He pays everything which is inside. So it's a special halacha by Talmud, by the Zakin, that you pay for everything which is inside. Why? Because it says Gadish, and Gadish includes everything which is inside the grain. But by Peah, there's no such halacha. Okay, by Peah, there's no halacha that you have to give Peah from stuff which is from Talmud, because there's no special pasuk like Gadish, there's no parallel pasuk like Peah and other matosinim. But v'chav does Rabbah, it's contradicts Rabbah. Tavern, I mean, by Peah they say the Rabbah's Talmud. They do have to give from Talmud Peah. The Kormi Pilot Talmud here, they exclude this stuff from Peah. Did Rabbi Avo say, Rabbi Yochanan, name Rabbi Yochanan, Modim Chachamim concede Rabbi Yehuda B'Kli Darko to Rabbi Yehuda by Kli Goren Shadarko Latmin, which are normally put into storage inside the standing grain. So therefore, basically, what the Gemara is trying to do is say, it's trying to say that over there it's derech to be matmid, because normally the potatoes grow on the ground. So therefore, you'll be chayev in pay on potatoes. But here, it's not derech to put things into storage, right? I mean, storage at least in a pile of grain. Right.
It's inappropriate area.
It's inappropriate area. That's what I mean to say, right? So therefore, here the guy who lit the fire is putter if it went to his mazik tomu, unless it was appropriate. It was appropriate. He's chayev. Now it's interesting because at other places, as Lieberman points out, other places in Shas, the way the good sugya tackles the stira in Masechta Kilayim, Masechta Soita, is by Xeris HaKosus. Similar to what we said in Omanalf, that there's an extra word Gadish here, not an extra word Gadish here. That's to reconcile that in Peah we include Gadish, according to Rabbanan, and here we exclude Peah. But here the Yerushalmi uses Svara, which it doesn't use in other places. It says that by Peah, so since it's Darko, you're liable to Peah. But here, by Talmud, of hiding stuff, since it's not darko, you're potter. Right? The guy who lit the fire is potter. So this is a non-pasuk-based drasha, but rather a logic-based distinction. Okay? So it says more, now the Gemara gives a different answer. And really like the Meichal Mayim, the Aruch HaShulchan, who says there's a different answer, and he explains all this at great length. So he says, Rabbi Yeshua says different answer to reconcile between Peah and here. He says, B'she'ein Eidim. Interesting answer. He says, you know why I put at Talmud? Not because there's a customs. Not because of Pasuk. And not even because of Darko or not Darko. You put at Talmud because how can you prove what the guy owes you? I mean, the guy who owes you money is part. It's kind of like you can't prove for insurance purposes what the contents of his karma was, and we don't believe him even if he takes a shiur. So there is like with nemanos. Of course, you have to get paid. It's a mitzvah, so you have to get paid from your Talmud. But here, nemanos, the tovea doesn't have on stuff which was hidden. You see that distinction? He does totally different Shan Talmud. It's not exercise, not lochel mashbisina, not based on darko, not darko, but based on whether we can know or not. So he says, b'sheinei. Right, someone's right. That's right. So b'sheinei, that's only if there's no witnesses. Avlim yeshedim, if there are witnesses, even a bar according to Rabbi Yeshua would agree. Kolam amoida adon Rabbi Yeshua, they have to pay. Why is that? Because then there's proof. So it's you have a prior, you have Eidim. And I don't think this is in the Bavli. The Tani came, learned like this. He brings a raya from a Bryce. It's interesting, Bryce. I'm not sure it's 100% raya, but it's interesting, Bryce. If you had a pile full of wheat, right? But it's covered with barley. Don't ask me why he made it a veneer of barley to make it look cheaper. Or vice versa. He wanted to make it look more expensive, so he took a gedish of sarim, he took a pile of barley, and he covered it with wheat. And it burned. It burned. So nice and low gedish sarim, you pay. You might see the bare minimum. What's the minimum? Barley. Now the Bavli again has a different shot of this. The Bavli has to do with it deals with this price based on the quality of the shmira, which the individual was makabel on this, and so assuming there's a shomer, and he was makabel shmira, and has a whole convoluted way of looking at it. But according to Yerushalmi, according to Rabbi Yeshua, this new hal ma'al chetamu. So it has to do with nemanos. So here you have no nemanos, right? If part of it was barley, you have no nemanos. That the whole thing was that any part of it was wheat, unless you do a recount. Unless you do a recount. Yeah, the Shmuel has no nemanos, or Eidim, of course, right? Eidim would work. So Eidim would work, otherwise there's no nemanos. Okay, so interesting shot. Now, along these lines, the Gemara goes further. Once we're on the topic of Talmud according to Rabbi Yeshua, which is Svara, we're going to go a little bit off on a tangent, an interesting tangent. Okay, this is not a Bavli. It's Yerushalmi a couple places, and then one of the other places where it comes up, three brings down. One of the other places where it comes up is in Shavuos, and well, wait till it comes. That's later on. I'm sorry, scratch that. This is a unique case. A certain individual. After this is a cool case. After he left by his friend Sak, Chad Sak Tzor, who was a clothes bag. Viradis, and something befell this bag. Ahenamar, the Shomer said, the Nifkad said, Sigenhava, it was flax. It was obviously very light. So he said, there's flax in the bag. Vahenamar, the Tovea, the Mafki said, Bologna, Metaksin hava mole. It was full of silk. It's obviously much more expensive. In this case, Harez and Nishma B'noitzel. In this case, the Mafkid can take a shvua and get it. And what's the tree that in Talmud, according to Rabbi Yeshua? Because in Talmud it has a veneer of barley. If the burden of proof is upon you to see, it shows that it's actually wheat. And even if it's a veneer of wheat, if it's known that it's barley underneath, certainly in that case, if you want to be paid for wheat, you have to demonstrate how much wheat there was. But in this case, it was a brown paper bag. It's a brown paper bag. The bag itself is not the object of discussion, unlike the Gadish and its veneer, but rather it is the contents of the bag. In this case, therefore, you don't need Eidim the guy himself, if he takes a shvuah, is believed to say what was in the bag. So big chiddush, interesting chiddush, but that's what it says here. Okay. Now along these lines, take it further. Rabbi Yochanan boy, Mao sheitanu lo davar shem rilo. Because he's the mafkid. If Nifka wanted to protect himself, he should have made an inventory ahead of time. He's the Nishba V'Noito. You're right. It's a Shvuah the Rabbanan. Actually, I take that back. My tone, my inflection was incorrect. You're right. It's not a good question. I don't know where you get themselves in Shvuahs. Maybe we'll get that. But you're right. This is a case when Nishba V'Noito, even though they're right, so you're not normally Nishba V'Noito. But this is a case of Nishba V'Noito, I don't know why. I'm not sure. But I guess we're saying that, you know what, maybe because the rice you don't need a shvuah. Maybe just his claim would have been enough. The Nifkat should have protected himself by doing an inventory ahead of time. Maybe. I don't know. We're asking a good question. Says about the Yerushalmi further, and there's interesting comment on before this in Masech Shvuos. It says, sometimes you have people who are rich and make themselves to be poor. Sometimes you have poor people who make themselves be rich. And it brings a pasuk to prove that. And this is the following, the top of the following Gemara. Rabbi Yochanan Mao Sheyitano Don Shem Rilok. We tie for a guy, even a taina which is not suitable for him. In other words, here, this guy taina with silk. The other guy said it was flax. But what about where the guy himself doesn't taina? We taina for him an unsuitable taina. The Gemara is going to give an example. The Shmei Hadatz here from here. Darisi the Barziza. There was a sharecropper of Barziza, and he was obviously a poor person, or at least he proved, he manifested pauper-like behavior. Okay? So, nevertheless, he left by a certain individual, lichadav, an astronomical amount of gold, as a pikadon, as an object for safekeeping. Mis Barziza, so Barziza, his master died, and Misarisa Barziza and the Orisa Barziza died as well. So the principals are dead. So what do we do with the stuff which was the solid gold which is left is because Asul Dekaka is fascinating case. Asul Dekum Rabbi Shmuel, the story came from Rabbi Shmuel. And he said, Rabbi Shmuel said, Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Yossi, sorry. Omar said, Manu to lo yades, everybody doesn't know. The Koma, the Isla said the Barziza, anything that the sharecropper of Barziza has, the Barziza, does he not? Don't we all know that they all belong to Barziza? Yisyav the Barziza. So therefore the property should give back, should give it back to the sons of Barziza. So it says, this is not the end of the story. Havil Barziza had Bani Ravin, more adult kids, going to kick in, and younger minor kids. Amar, so Rabbi Yishmael said, Yisrael Rav Ravaya Palga, the older kids should get their half. The Karbrab with the Kukaya, and when the younger ones grow up, Yasim Palga there got their half. In the meantime, I guess they put it into guardianship. Dharma, Rabbi Yishmael, Rabbi Yossi. So Rabbi Yishmael, Rabbi Yossi died too. The Paisik died. So they went to another Paisik, right? As of the Rabbi Chia, the story came from Rabbi Chia. Amar said, "In min adah, if from here, we don't derive anything. This is a mistake." Meaning, he said, "Yisyavu lebonei darise." You have to give the money to the kids of the Oris, not the Barziza's kids. And the Kikar Lord and Bar brings on a gear, since also in the Skoria manuscript. The East Barnosh, the little boy, some people don't want to publicize that they're rich. The sharecropper, you think he was a sharecropper? This is a Bill Gates in disguise. He didn't want people to know that he was so rich. Who told you to give the money to the master of the farm? Give to the sharecropper. So that's not what he did. So he said, because the guy who had it for safekeeping, who didn't know, of course, whose it was, said, Kvaryavis Palga already dispersed half of it. To whom did I already disperse half of it? Barziza's which sons? The older sons. Already gave it. So what do I do? Unless they said, no, Mashnasata be based on whatever you gave based on yesteryear's based on Nasata. You leave it there. Mashatanaisen, yet on the other, whatever you give now, I'll be based on Tanaisen, give based on the basin as well. In other words, so we have the interesting situation where the whole psak is sheker. Because it can't be, we're assuming sheker. Because it's not half barzizas and half is sharecroppers. So we're assuming it's either all barzizas or all the sharecroppers. But nevertheless, it's based already paskin one way, and my base is passing the other way, so we have two mutually coexisting psakim. Half remains by the older kids, and half it goes to the kids of the sharecropper. So it says, the Gemara, Mao tapulam Mao yemer boni darisi the barzuze, they barziza. What can the sons, we're following through, can the sons of the sharecropper who are now getting a half of it, can they say to the older sons of Barziza, no, Yoivin loan, Matanaftu, take away what you stole from us. Because it wasn't your father's, there was no right to your father, give it back to us. They want a revote, right. Yochlim Meimer loan, they could say, it was already certified. Masha says, I'll be based in Nasser. Only here it says Basin, not the secretary. We don't have secretaries of state. It was done already, I'll be Basin, which we don't have to return to the half which we took. So it says, can the younger children of Barziza say to the older children, okay, we were deprived of our share, but let us divide with you, right? Because whatever the family got should go to all the family. No. Yachlin Meim alone, the older sons can say the younger sons, Metzia Matzanu. The truth is, it's not Magia to us at all. We had no proof for it. It was like a Metzia. Well, we found a Metzia. Tough on you guys. You guys weren't old enough, you're tough luck. Okay? Alright, Yitzchak says, different versions, same thing. Leis ben Ravavayel Taktiktaya. There's no real difference in the justification of the claim between the older ones and the younger ones. Neither of them are justified claim. Ella Kibishita Lematona. But it's like it was given to the older ones as a gift. Not as an Aveda, but as a gift, but the same idea. In other words, the younger ones lose out. So ultimately the money remains, because of basements to the separate psakim, half in the hands of the older children of Barziza, and half in the hands of the children of the sharecropper. Okay? And here we see that we taina for a person, even though we know he's not suitable for this taina. Even though we know that Barziza's sharecropper was a poor person. I think that probably his case is not like this. But even though we know he's a poor person, we still taina for him that perhaps he had money and was just socking it away for a rainy day. Okay? Says the Mishnah further. Nate sheyotza mitachza patish. You have a spark which comes out from underneath a fire, a hammer hitting an anvil. The Yotzizik and it goes on the damages. Chayav, you are liable. The blacksmith is liable. Gamal shu tone, a camel which is carrying pishtan, flax. For Rishon it's passing through Rishon Rabin. The flax bulges into a store. And it's ignited by the fire, by the candle of the storekeeper. And then it goes on and burns down the house. So it's the camel driver who's chayiv, because he shouldn't have allowed his camel's load to enter the shop, right? What if the storekeeper ever left his candle outside or exposed position? The storekeeper is chayiv. You don't care. That's true in all cases except for Ner Chanukah. Ner Chanukah is potter. Why? Because what's the law of Ner Chanukah? Has to be outside. So it's done. Birshus. So it says the Gemara. Tanya of Yunam Ner Chanukah potter. Neshu Birshus. Chomrim ben kach ben kachayev. Chom say okay, it's Birshus, but you can't be negligent. You know, they have in Yerushalmi those things that you put them in. There's glass. I put them in a glass. Who told you to put it outside? It's going to create havoc. Says Markagon Elisha Yuoisim, and this is similar to those who would make sukkahs. A piece of Chani was saying, sukkahs in the openings of their stores. They're allowed to do it, but if somebody else comes and damages them, they're liable. Why? Because who told you to build your sukkah in Rishus HaRabim? So too, who told you to put your Chanukah in a place Rishus HaRabim where it's going to wreak havoc? So even though you have the mitzvah to do it, you should do it in a way which doesn't disrupt traffic, that doesn't create a potential problem. Okay, there's a Rashba here which makes some trouble, but it's late. I don't remember exactly what he says. The Chaz Messiah brings it down, others bring it down, so we'll just leave it out of this. Anyway, says the Mishnah further. That's the end of the first section of Bava Kamma. Let's start stealing things. Masnisin, Meruba. It's one of my favorite program of Shas. Meruba midas tashlume kefil midas tashlume arba chamisha. Paying kefil is superior. What? Is David's prayer? Prayer? Okay. Meruba at the meet. We'll see if it's in Yerushalmi. How does he know? Meruba midas tashlume kefil midas tashlume arba chamisha. Shemidas tashlume kefil, midas tashlume kefil, noegas b'dav shishbo b'ruachayim, you pay double if you steal something which is alive, dav shem b'ruachayim, something which is not alive. Midas tashlume chamisha, the 4 or 5 times, you only, ain't noegas of b'shor b'sel 5, not only is it for, only for live animals, it's only for stealing an ox or a lamb. Then you pay 4 or 5 times, right? Shneimar says, ki nov ish shor oseh v'goymer. If I steal from a thief, I don't pay Mishan Tashlumi Kefil, V'lo Tavech, nor does somebody who slaughters, V'lo Mocher sells, after a thief stole something, does he pay Tashlumi Arba Chamisha? It's only the thief himself who pays Kefil, and if he's Tavech or Mocher, then he pays Arba Chamisha. Minayites, I know these halachas. Mim Timotzei, it says if you find in his hands a gneva. I only know ox, donkey, and goat, or sheep. Why are they mentioned? Because only those are mentioned explicitly. When it says Chaim alive, Rabbis Koba Chaim includes all live animals. Haganeva, when it says the theft, the Rabbis includes movable objects. So that's his Loma Sharva Chamor V'Seh. Why is it single out ox, donkey, and sheep? If it's because we're talking about stuff which has hanah to the mizbeach, nisnei shor v'seh. Just say ox and sheep, because donkeys are going to the mizbeach. Now here you have a part missing which the Escorial manuscript has, which is important. It says, it goes on, it says, and if you want to bring down things which where the Kohanim are a benefit because of Bechor, so where's their Bechor? Which goes to Kohanim? Where's the Bechor go to the Kohanim? Yeah. Where do the Kohanim get benefits? By Shor and Chamor. Right? Which animals go to the Kohanim? Yeah, Shor and Chamor, but not Set. Now, I'm not sure actually if that's correct now in reflection. I guess they don't get firstborn lambs. Maybe firstborn is only on cattle? Is that true? I guess so. I don't remember. Anyway, but that's what the manuscript says. And then it ends, and there's no answer. But the truth is, between the two questions, you can construct an answer. The reason why Shor, Chamor, and Ser are mentioned, because these are animals which are important in terms of Kohanim and Beis HaMikdash. Some of them for Kohanim, some for the Beis HaMikdash, some for both. So that's why it's mentioned, because that's Chashivas. But any animal you steal, you have to pay. Any object you steal, you have to pay double. Tarish Shmuel says Yotzak HaKol is supposed to steal land. Shena Metalflim, there's no paying kefil. By stealing your land, don't pay kefil. Yotzak HaBarim also precludes slaves. Shein L'chol Bein El Tashus, because there's only usage of slaves. Now what slaves are we talking about here? Big Machloikas Achronim. Which slaves are we precluding? Evet Ivri or Evet Kanani? Some of the Achronim say Evet Kanani is precluded because it's like Karka. You don't need a separate preclusion for Evet Kanani. So this preclusion is talking specifically about Evet Ivri. And every Ivri, there's no kefil because you don't really own them. You only get to use them. The Sameach says, no. The Yerushalmi doesn't hold, he brings rice, doesn't hold that for all matters, Avodim are like Karkos. And I think we had things like this in the past. So everybody says, when it says, it means Evet Kanani as well. It's going to preclude Evet Kanani. And telling you Evet Kanani you can't collect. You know why? Because you don't own his soul. He could have walked away. You can't prove that the Ganav actually stole him. It's possible at some level he agreed to serve the Ganav. So therefore you can't demand kefil from the Ganav on him. It's interesting, the translation. Also, Yotzu Shtar Shein Ben Elcha Ben El Rai. Shtaros are excluded because they're not inherently valuable. They're just used to prove things. Why don't you mention Shemidas Tashlumi Kefil Noi B'Toyin Tanis Ganav? Why do you mention that kefil also applies when a shomer lied and claimed the object was stolen? He also has to pay kefil. And also b'shutfim, where one shutf lies to the other and says they don't have the object, he also pay kefil. But Sheni Tashlumi Arba Chamisha, which you don't have to pay. Shomrim don't pay Arba Chamisha, nor do shutfim pay Arba Chamisha to each other. Why is that not mentioned? Good question. Such a good question. We have no answer, and we stop for the evening.